and feel like you can't? Do you wonder, how can I be free from these issues that have destroyed my life? Well, my friend, I have the answer. Bible Way Hibner Memorial Church of God in Christ presents Chain Breakers, this and every Sunday at 9 a.m. here on WHYL.
From the L.B. Smith Ford Lincoln Studios, Oldies 102.9 is WHYL Carlisle.
Real Estate. We're your hosts, real estate broker John Rainville and your mortgage expert Kingsley Harmer discuss everything from mortgage rates to home staging for foreclosures and everything in between that affect the daily real estate market. Real people, real questions, real answers. Today's show is brought to you by www.pagoloan.com, your source.
It's time now for the Real Estate Radio Guy with real estate broker John Rainville. For the next hour, you'll learn everything about national real estate topics, trends, and news revolving around Central PA. It's sponsored by GSF Mortgage Corporation, EnviroQuest Inspections, and SearchHomesInPA.com. And now, here's the Real Estate Radio Guy, John Rainville.
Good morning. We're having a great day here in Pennsylvania. Nice, bright, sunny.
Are we on now?
Good morning, everybody. Hope you're getting ready to get your real estate on. It's a little bit of a chilly day here in PA today. Fall came early. The eclipse changed our weather. What the heck's going on, Kingsley?
I have no clue, but I love sleeping in it. I mean, I'm one of those people that will sleep in cold. I'd rather have 10 blankets on as opposed to it being 90 degrees. I just can't sleep in the heat. So I'll have it ice cold in the bedroom.
Right.
My wife hates me for it, so she'll have like 5 blankets, and I'll be laying there with nothing on. I'm not literally.
That's not a pretty picture, but go ahead.
But yeah, I love the fall. It's going to go back, I think, to close to 90 this week again.
No, it's in the 70s, I think. Well, it's somewhere in the country. I'm sure it'll be.
So somewhere it was. I thought I saw it going up to like in the high 80s.
Well, this morning we're going to be talking about what we were going to talk about last week, about nasty water and no water. You know, water issues that are pretty common in the industry that people have as homeowners, where, you know, they either have an odor to the water or they may have cloudiness in the water, hard water, you know, that doesn't taste good. And then you also have the well issues, no water at all because, you know, your well pump's not pumping. And a lot of people in Pennsylvania and, well, really across the country are on well water. And I think we may see a resurgence of that, you know, in the long run, as they're talking about maybe stopping having public sewer because we'd be able to have on-site, everyone would be able to have a better system.
Good luck with that. Money pushes everything.
Follow the dollar.
Yeah, look at the Fairview Township, that whole force you on to the public water thing. And why? Because it's publicly made and they can force you onto it, pay you to go onto it, and then charge you for the rest of your life.
I want to give a special shout-out this morning to Nancy Altmeyer and Nicole Snyder. They finally got out of the big box brokerage. They made the jump to the independent side, to the dark side, and they're now over with our buddy, good buddy Don Failer over there at Right Move Realty.
Good.
And so I did promise the ladies that I would give them a shout-out this morning and let any of their customers or friends that are looking for them. Their new phone number over at Right Move Realty is 717-243-6683. They'd be really thrilled to hear from you. They're excited about their new opportunities there. So big shout out to you ladies today.
Nothing for me. It's been a fairly quiet week. I think the market's, you know, slowed down, either A, because of the market, B, I mean, it's the school year, so everybody's kind of gearing up for getting their kids to school.
Yeah, nasty Labor Day. I mean, the weather this weekend, yeah, you just do want to stay in bed.
Yeah, I kind of was thinking that this morning. I'm like, man, why can't I just do this from my phone?
We might have to negotiate for a better time slot, a different time slot, an afternoon time slot.
Yeah, and have the makeup crew and everything else come in,
That's true. That's
to the
true.
house, get me all ready for
That's
that.
true. Well, I'm thinking about getting one of those Mevo cameras for us to use. So I don't know.
I've got that on my to-do list, and every day I look at it and I'm like, I'm thinking about giving it a try. Only reason is because we can, get different angles.
Right.
But I don't know. Is it good for Facebook Live? Is it good for all that? All right, we're gonna try some new technology. So, water issues.
Yeah. So I know we have Mr. Rhoades on the line this morning. Gil, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for calling in this morning so we could talk about water issues. I guess I've known you down in the Lewisberry area now for, going on, I think older than what you want me to tell you, but about 30 years.
50-some years.
Yeah, but what a fun business it's been, right?
It has been. I enjoy it.
You guys have just grown by leaps and bounds over the years, and I know you're really considered to be one of the leading water experts in our area.
Well, that's an honor. Thank you.
So, yeah, we want to talk about a couple things. We obviously want to talk about just well issues because I do know you guys handle those. But what are some of the common water quality, well, maybe that's the best way to say it, water quality issues that you guys remedy on probably a daily basis for our listeners?
The most common, of course, is hard water. In this area, it's very rare to find a well that's naturally soft. So 99% of everyone with a well, and most people with public water as well, have very hard water.
And what is hard water? What is that?
Is dissolved calcium or limestone in the water. And that's what leaves the white spots on your glasses, your dishes. If you have a nice granite countertop, it can mess that up pretty bad. Very hard to clean off.
And does that give you any issues with your pipes or anything in the long run?
Yeah, particularly in the hot water side. If you have a boiler heating the water, it can clog the coil and you lose pressure on the hot water side. Water heaters, we've removed them when they literally were 3 times their normal weight from the calcium that had piled up in the bottom.
So that probably makes your water heater burn out a little bit faster, right?
Yeah, it blocks the heat on a gas water heater. It only takes a quarter of an inch of buildup, and you start losing efficiency very quickly. And, of course, on electric, it can coat the elements, and then elements burn out, have to be replaced.
So what are the common ways for you to treat hard water?
Water softeners, the most reliable, the most proven way. I know it's negative about the salt, but when it comes down to it, that is the way you remove calcium from water.
Gil, I mean, everyone sees those commercials on TV here in our area about, that electronic gizmo that goes on the pipes, that scale band.
Right.
Does it really work? What can you tell us from an expert side?
Okay, that technology is not new. When my father owned a business back in the mid-'70s, a gentleman came knocking on our door and introduced him, my father, John Rhoades, founder of Rhoades Water Systems, introduced him to the idea that magnetic waves, radio waves, which is a magnetic field, being put through the water would do something to inhibit the calcium in the water. The best example I give my customers, those of you older people and familiar with the Susquehanna area here, remember Robin Hood Restaurant, along 83 there, Yoakumtown exit. Their water was 26 grains hard, very hard. And the dishwasher, if the water softener was not working within 1 to 2 weeks, the dishwasher would need to be repaired. Gentleman would come out, clean the elements on the dishwasher, and tell Mrs. Brown, the lady that owned Robin Hood Restaurant, that she needs to call the water treatment guys. Something's wrong with the water softener. Of course, that would bounce back to me and my dad. We'd drop down there, check the salt, see what's going on. when the gentleman promised us all this great thing, you put this device on the pipe, wrap a wire around the pipe, puts a magnetic field through the water, and miraculously the calcium will not stick to anything. Now, keep in mind, it does not remove the calcium physically from the water like a water softener does, but the technology they claimed that it breaks it down. So my dad, being very common sense kind of fella, he said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, I can tell you real quick if this thing will work. He said, meet me at Robin Hood Restaurant. We'll put one on there. I'll bypass the water softener, and I'll know in 1 or 2 weeks if it's working. So I was with him. I was a pretty young fella. Went in the basement, Robin Hood Restaurant, 1-inch main water pipe supplying the restaurant, and the guy said, let's put 2 of them on. They use a lot of water here. Okay. We put 2 of them on the pipe, bypassed the water softener, and I don't even think it was a full week. Our phone rang. Jeannie Brown was on the phone, John, something's wrong with the water softener. The dishwasher guy was just out here, and the element's all clogged up. So my dad told that guy, take the device and run. The other thing I tell my customers is Water Quality Association, the big label that you will find on all major brands of water softeners. They're all certified by Water Quality, WQA. I attend their international trade show about once every 3 years, and it is massive. Every vendor from China, Korea, all around the world is there, and it literally takes a day to walk through and see all the vendors for all the water treatment. The last time I was there, I saw one little stand selling the electronic device.
Wow.
So, there's all the big names in the company that have all the opportunity at our fingertips to make lots and lots of money.
So another
it speaks
gimmick
for itself. I mean, and I have other examples, but I won't bore you.
It's like the age-old, vitamin business. I mean, every vitamin that comes out every month is the new greatest and best thing that there's really no evidence that shows that it's actually doing what they claim it to be.
Right. Yeah, I would challenge anyone to dig up the old research from Consumer Reports if you still are, not convinced.
So then salt water being the only way to really treat this, what is it? I mean, is it like a big salt filter that the water's just running through?
Let me explain how every water softener works. Now, some are designed to be more efficient than others, and there's a few variables there. But every basic water softener has a tank full of resin. It looks like brown sand. If you roll it between your fingers, you will notice it's tiny beads of a material that's like polyester, similar to nylon. As calcium water flows through the resin bed, there's an ion exchange. What happens if you watch that resin through a magnifying glass, you would actually see the resin jump like a piece of popcorn. And what happens at that moment is it absorbs calcium from your water. And at the same time, it releases sodium. Keep in mind, sodium and salt is sodium chloride. Calcium would be a calcium chloride. So you have a calcium versus sodium exchange. So now your water is coming into the house with a small trace of salt, but zero calcium. Okay, wow. It's usually so small you can't taste it. It's very minute, but there is a small trace of salt in the water. The calcium has been removed. The resin beads are now considered calcium charged. The salt tank that's beside the softener for this period of a week could sit out in the garage. It does nothing but take up space. But at approximately 5 to 7 days, the calcium has now all become loaded, or the resin, has now become all loaded with calcium. Something has to clean that. Now you need the salt. In the middle of the night, this water softener goes into a backflush. It starts to draw about 3 gallons of brine or salt water into the resin. And once again, the little resin beads start popping like popcorn, and you get a reverse action. You release the calcium chloride, which goes down your drain, and you absorb salt into the resin. Then it rinses it so you don't get up in the morning and have salty tasting water. The last cycle in the water softener, it puts about 3 gallons of water back in the salt tank for the next week. Then it shuts off. At that point, the salt tank does nothing. It does not sit there and put salt in the water all day.
Wow.
It could be placed in your front yard. You now have salt-charged resin, and the resin is what does the work.
I got to tell you, I had no idea.
It just continues week after week to do that cycle. That's how a water softener works.
Interesting.
All right. I've been educated. Yeah. Education. I love it.
So, John, probably one of the biggest things that we see in the real estate side when we're selling a home is we have a bad water test. And I guess that's like E. coli might be in it. And then we're asked to, put a UV light on it, or sometimes we're told to, shock the well. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, about shocking wells and UV lights and E. coli?
Sure. First of all, if it is possible for a small bit of coliform is an indicator. It is a natural bacteria we all have present in our bodies, but it is the indicator the laboratory uses to determine that surface water is present. There's an argument as to how harmful it is to you. For a very short time, the FHA guidelines actually allowed up to 10. Then they went back to absolutely 0. So the standard nowadays is there should be no coliform present. What you have, if you have a small amount of coliform, maybe one or two, I would say it could be a slight possibility something got in the water, somebody touched something, maybe they didn't sterilize the faucet when they took the test. You could shock it, try it again. If you start approaching any kind of a substantial amount, then my personal opinion is shocking a well is just a Band-Aid.
So when we're talking about shocking a well, we're talking about putting
Clorox
into
the well.
it. And now, is that something a homeowner should do on a regular basis, or it really shouldn't be needed at all?
It should not be needed. Okay. So our professional advice is if you have coliform, while you may not be getting sick, you may have company or children or somebody comes in your home that's more sensitive, and it could cause some sickness or something to them. If you know it's present, you should put a UV light in. I mean, obviously, if you live there with it and the day comes you sell the house, you will be buying it for the next owner. Why not buy it for yourself if you know there's a problem?
John, a UV light's an ultraviolet light. How does that end up killing the germs or the E. coli?
Okay, that gets a little technical, too. First of all, an ultraviolet light is very similar to a tanning bed. The bulb puts off ultraviolet rays, and it technically disrupts. This is the scientific definition. It disrupts the DNA in the coliform bacteria, which has to multiply itself very quickly throughout the day. The minute the DNA is disrupted, it cannot reproduce. So eventually your cells diminish to 0. So we refer to it as killing bacteria. Technically, scientifically, it's they would argue that it don't kill it, it disrupts DNA. That's a very technical thing.
So
but the thing that I would like to point out for people to understand, tanning beds after about a year will not give you a tan, even though they're lit up. You can lay under there and sweat, and you'll get out. You have nothing. An ultraviolet light is exactly the same way. The rays that kill the bacteria or disrupt the DNA, they get weaker and weaker and weaker as the months go by. And the ultraviolet light companies always label the lights and say right on there, replace bulb annually. And that is the reason. It's not because you want to have a new bulb in case the old one burns out. Because I hear it every day, well, the light's still lit, so the water must be good. And that's wrong. You need a fresh bulb so you get the fresh ultraviolet rays so it will do the job it's intended to do.
Now, John, is that something that the homeowner can do, or is that something they have to call somebody like you to do to change the UV lights?
Homeowners can replace ultraviolet bulbs, and many do. I would only caution you that the bulb slides inside a glass tube called a quartz sleeve, and the light shines through that glass tube or quartz sleeve. On the outside of that sleeve is full water pressure. If you pull the bulb out and it sticks and you start wiggling it and you crack that sleeve, you will have an immediate flood all over yourself, your basement. And the worst part is, usually a quartz sleeve is a very specific item. You cannot just run to your local home center and say, hey, I need a quartz sleeve because it's Saturday afternoon and I thought I was going to change my bulb. So I would just caution what a lot of my customers who are very handy and want to change it themselves, they will often have me show them how, or even pay me one time and watch and take some notes. And I warn them, number one, be very careful. And number two, I'd encourage you to do it during the week. If you have an issue, we can grab the quartz sleeve throughout a workday and easily get you up and running.
So what does it cost to just have you come out and swap a bulb out and to make sure everything's, running efficiently?
Our UV bulbs we currently sell for $49, and we have a $50 service call to drive someone's home. And that does include, cleaning quartz sleeve and a few extra benefits once we're in the house.
So basically for $100, I can have you come out, make sure the system's working, put a new bulb in to make sure I'm getting fresh, clean water, and basically ensure myself that I'm not going to flood my basement and cost me thousands of dollars in damage.
Right. Our policy is if we break a quartz sleeve, we repair what we broke. I don't feel it's right that I change 25 bulbs and don't break a quartz sleeve, and then poor Mr. Jones happens to be number 26, and maybe his stuck a little, or we weren't as careful or something, and we break it. To me, that don't constitute a bill on his behalf. That was our mistake.
And that's why
that's my policy.
That's why you're still in business.
I would like to think that's a good. I would like other businesses to treat me the way I treat my customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, another common thing that we see in the go ahead.
Well, I want to go back here because I want to make sure I understand this whole UV thing.
Okay.
So, where exactly does the UV light get installed? Is it after the water comes into the house? Is it somewhere down into the well?
No, the UV light we normally mount on the wall near the well tank. And I would add this: the water has to at least be filtered before an ultraviolet light. If you have no water treatment at all, then it's standard procedure to install a cartridge filter to remove dirt and sediment. Small pieces, even though you may not see them with the naked eye, a small piece of dirt flowing through a UV light can hold bacteria, and the light will not penetrate that dirt in the 5 to 10 seconds that the water flows past the ultraviolet light, proceed down the pipe and recontaminate your pipe, the plumbing.
Okay. So just to be clear, then, it's not the well that's getting fixed, if you will. It's really just the water in your tank before it comes into your house that's getting...
It's after the tank, after the water softener, neutralizer, any water treatment you have, the UV light is the last unit on the line before the water continues into your fixtures.
Okay.
So, John, I get through probably hundreds of homes every year. I see a lot with wells, but you just mentioned like a cartridge filter. Is that something really, if you have a well, everyone should have at least a basic cartridge filter on?
I recommend it. We have a few rare places where we actually have it on public water, and you would be very surprised how dirty they get on public water.
Really?
And, very surprised. And well water, of course, it tends to have more sediment than public water because it's not chlorinated, and public water is put through the big vats that look like in-ground swimming pools where the sediment can, settle to the bottom.
How much does a typical system like that cost with just to put a filter in?
For us to do it, it's less than $200. Some people, pick them up at a hardware store or something and put them on themselves. It's not a real big expense. Cartridges in them run $3 to $5 at a hardware store, home center, very common item.
So pretty cheap. And how would you compare a filter of that caliber to, say, like a Brita water filtration system that you put in your refrigerator?
Brita goes way beyond just simply sediment. A Brita filter has charcoal, which will remove organics and chemical type things like pesticides, any chemical type herbicide, pesticide that has leached into the well.
Is there any system like that you can put on for your general water supply?
Yes, you can. Normally you will see them on public water more than well water. And if you go to a home center and look at the cartridge filters, you will see some are dirt and sediment. It will say sediment only. It looks like a string, like a white ball of yarn, basically. And then beside that, you will see the charcoal filters, which have activated carbon. Same material you would see in an Israeli gas mask. Carbon's a wonderful, absolutely incredible invention. It will protect people in chemical warfare. It will absorb petroleum out of water, many chemical type things that may have washed into water. Carbon will remove. You do have to be religious about changing it, because if you just put one on and ignore it for years, you actually can have it break down, put that back in the water. So if you have one, you should have a little calendar and be real faithful to put the new cartridges in every 3 months or 6 months.
John, another problem that, common in my industry is to see is every once in a while we get out where there's a home, the well's been done, and maybe it's near, an old farmer's field, and they have nitrates in the water. And then I know you've come out and put on like a reverse osmosis system. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Reverse osmosis is the unit I get the most compliments from my customers. I can't say enough for it, especially if you're of the mindset where you like to buy bottled water. It goes at the sink. It's not a whole house system, and there's where a lot of people misunderstand. It gets mounted at the sink, so it's point of use. We often tee off and supply ice maker to refrigerate. Tee off and supply ice or water dispensers on the refrigerator. And a reverse osmosis removes 98% of all total dissolved solids in the water. So it's like one step from distilled water. Years ago, they actually used reverse osmosis on Navy submarines to process the water that they just simply pull in. It's very incredible what it does, and there's no electricity. The only energy waste, if you want to call it that, is it takes approximately 3 gallons of water to make 1 good gallon. So if you have made a gallon of iced tea, you actually have run off 3 gallons of water till the reverse osmosis reprocesses that 1 gallon.
Wow. Is there that much waste in the water that it's disposing of, or it's just a byproduct of running it through the system?
It flushes the membrane. So the cartridge filter we talked about a few minutes ago, it's similar to an oil filter in your car. Water is pushed directly into that, what looks like a ball of string, and any particles that stick to that string remain there until you pull that out, throw it in the garbage, and put a new filter on. Reverse osmosis uses a flushing action. So as the water flushes across the RO membrane, it diverts the good water that has no impurities over to the holding tank, and the remaining 2/3 of water that flushes carries those impurities off to the drain. Therefore, an RO membrane does not actually collect those solids and hold them. It just diverts the impurities off to the drain. That's why you have that,
interesting,
what we call permeate water, which carries the impurities. And that's one of the incredible things. That membrane will often, a good quality membrane, I see lasts 5 to 7 years on an average.
And what does a cost install of a reverse osmosis system?
Okay, we have 2 units. Our basic unit is $695 installed, and our upgraded unit has a non-electric pump, and that one is $995 installed.
So, in essence, basically for $700, out of maybe one sink or one faucet, you could literally have you're saying bottled water for 5 to 7 years.
Right. If you take, a lot of times you go down to Wise Markets or something, you'll see out front you can take your own jug, put a quarter, 35 cents in, and fill it with water. Behind the wall is a reverse osmosis. So you are getting RO water. Most store brand bottled water, if you read the label, it will say filtered through reverse osmosis. If you buy those 5-gallon jugs or have them delivered to your office or place of work where they put a 5-gallon jug on top of a cooler, that water is all processed with reverse osmosis. It's a very low-cost way to take water to about as close to perfect as you can get. Wow.
Interesting. Never knew that. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, and most people agree that it tastes great. You don't have any aftertaste or anything from other chemicals. Probably the one concern, if you want to call it that, I get from many, many people. They ask me, well, does it remove the good minerals from the water? And I have to tell them, yes. If there's dissolved solids, TDS, we refer to it, total dissolved solids, in your water, some of that could be arsenic, lead, mercury, zinc, nitrates, you had mentioned, all that accumulation in the water, and then here maybe there's a trace mineral that actually would be healthy for you. The RO has no way to determine that it's going to reject these minerals but hold that one.
Oh, well.
That would be very impossible. I tell them, take a multivitamin.
That just makes this whole system worthless now. I don't.
So, John, 2 other things that I've run into here locally: iron in the water, and then sometimes like a sulfur smell. Can you tell us a little bit about how you treat that?
Yeah, iron, there's numerous ways to treat iron. The big trick there, this is kind of a trade professional thing, yes, but if you have acid or a low pH, that makes it hard to get all the iron out. And there's where, a lot of people can go wrong if you're trying to do something yourself, especially. You have to either use specific equipment that can remove iron in spite of the fact that the water is acidic, or you must raise the pH to neutral. Once the pH is neutral, a good quality water softener will remove a substantial amount of iron. Of course, we have berm, we have green sand, which does sulfur and iron. Air injection is a great way, and that's one of the newer things we've been very successful is we have an iron filter that the top half has an air space, so it literally aerates water. And
so
as simple
a magnet
as it sounds, it's amazing how effective it is.
So a magnet's not going to do it? Stick a magnet on one side of the pipe?
Magnet won't do anything to iron. No, absolutely not.
Well, John, I'd sort of like to move on to another thing you guys do, which you do a lot of replacing. You also replace like well pumps, correct?
We do.
Well pumps, tanks. Can you talk to us a little about that? Because I know, every once in a while, especially when you're having thunderstorms, every once in a while I've heard that a lightning strike can actually, really like kill a well, right? Or burn the motor out or something?
Absolutely. Lightning likes to connect with a good ground. That's why the old, farmhouses from 150, whatever years ago used to put ground rods and even run cables up over the top of the roof and down to attract or gather the lightning and disperse it into the ground, and so it wouldn't do damage to the house. The best ground you have in a home, if you're on a well, is a well pump that's approximately 200 feet down in the ground with 2 or 3 copper wires going all the way to it. So if a high surge of electric comes through the power line, maybe hit a mile down the road, you don't even know it happened. But there's a flash of high voltage, comes into your home, down through the electrical boxes, seeking to neutralize itself by connecting with a good ground. Guess what the best ground is, especially if that pump happens to be running right at that time. And when they first came out with the submersible pumps in the United States, right around the 1970s when it began, the early pumps often had no lightning protection, and it was unbelievable the calls we would get. the morning after a thunderstorm. And within a few years, they begin to develop lightning protection to inhibit that, and the call volume went way, way, way down. But lightning, as you know, I mean, it's powerful. You get a good shot, and there's not much going to stop it.
And John, I seem to remember, maybe it was back in the days of your dad, we had one that got replaced, and you guys replaced it, and then actually our homeowners insurance ended up covering it.
Right.
Because of the lightning strike, that's something that they sometimes cover.
Yes, that is. People carry higher and higher deductibles. So, if you're carrying $1,000 or more deductible, you probably, unless you have an extra large or extra deep pump, you'll be stuck with the bulk of the bill. But, years ago when it was $100, $500 deductible, it was a big help to submit that to homeowners, and for them that's a very small claim. It wasn't really even hardly an annoyance to the insurance company, but a big help to the consumer, obviously.
Right. So another thing a lot of people don't understand, can you explain what I call those blue tanks, those pressure tanks? What does that actually do?
Okay, yes. I would love to explain that, because I tell my customers they always want to know about preventive maintenance. There's nothing you can do as a consumer or homeowner in the line of preventive maintenance for your well pump. There's, no, you don't drain the tank, you don't flush this, do anything. But there's one thing you must know as a homeowner. If that blue tank or pressure tank gets waterlogged, in other words, it loses the air inside, the pump will begin to short cycle. And if you are in your home, the washing machine's filling, or the kids are in the shower or something, and you hear the pump clicking on, clicking off, clicking on, clicking off, like very short, few seconds, that is the one time nobody else in the world knows it except the person living in that home. So you need to call your professional pump man and say, hey, I think there's something wrong with the tank. The purpose of the pressure tank, the manufacturers of the submersible well pumps want a 1-minute run time. So in other words, when that pump clicks on, they do not want the pump clicking off until it has run at least 60 seconds. Well, if you're in the home and you ran a quart of water and then you went and got a drink, and then maybe you flushed a toilet that nowadays only uses 1.5 gallons, and the pump can pump 10 gallons a minute, obviously you can't have the pump click off and on for each individual thing. So you have a pressure tank that holds, if you have an 8-gallon a minute pump, you should have a tank that has an 8-gallon drawdown minimum. So that when the tank finally pushes water into your home, as you use water, you're actually drawing it from the pressure tank. As the tank gets near empty, the pressure switch will come on, and then even if you have just shut the water off at that moment, the pump will continue to run for a minute, refilling that tank and shut off. Now you have 8, 10, 12 gallon of pressurized water to use throughout the day until the pump has to come on again and refill that.
So, John, would you hear like pipes banging? I mean, what are some of the signs that a homeowner, would tip them off, like banging pipes or something? Or
most pipes are pretty quiet nowadays, especially with the new plastic pipe. Here's the two things. If you're in the basement near the tank, you can hear the click of the pressure switch. If you hear that click and it's less than 15 or 20 seconds till it clicks again, you probably have an issue. And if it's beginning to become real short, like 3 to 5 seconds, then you're at the point where it's a serious issue and you'll soon be having damage in the well. The other clue, and this one, if I'm in my shower at my home, I notice the pressure increasing, and then I don't usually notice it decrease, but when the pump does come on, I notice the increase. So, and that becomes far more obvious if it's short cycling. So if you're in a shower and you notice the water pressure gets strong and then it gets weak, and it gets strong and then it gets weak, and this is all happening in a space of 5 seconds or less, that is a major clue that you have a waterlogged tank. The air bladder is bad in the tank, and you want to address that. If you have a bad tank, you're looking maybe $500, $600, $700. If you ignore it and it ruins the pump, Now the pump man will come out, obviously he has to put a new pump in, and in the minute we go in the basement, turn the switch on to try the new pump, we're like, oh, well, here's why your pump's bad, your tank's bad. Now you have two things to buy, where 6 months earlier you could have just corrected the tank and maybe got several more years out of the pump. So that is the one thing as a homeowner you want to be alert for, is short-cycling your well tanks.
Well, Gil, we've certainly learned a lot. I know I have. I didn't even know there was tanks with resin, and really it's like a chemical transaction, I guess. It's interesting to learn all that I did today. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners out there are wondering if they have a system set up as good as they can, or at the very least, like I am, certainly interested in possibly reverse osmosis for the house. I mean, we buy those 5-gallon water jugs every week. So what is the best number to reach out to you to set up an appointment to see what options are available to homeowners?
The best number to call is 938-6151. That's been our business number for about 55 years.
Wow.
We've been very careful to protect that number or not change it, and hopefully that'll be our office number going forward for many, many more years.
And you're on Facebook as well?
We are on Facebook. I would ask people, don't request service, on Facebook. You might be upset if I log on a week later and see your request.
I completely understand that. So, all right. So the best number
we do things the old-fashioned way.
So the best way to get a hold of you really is phone number 717-938-6151.
Yep, Rhoades
That's
Water
correct.
Systems, and you guys also do general plumbing too, right?
We do. I'm a master plumber.
Okay.
We do general plumbing.
I just want them to know everything that you do, because I know you guys are known as the water experts, but you're really a full service plumbing operation also.
Yes, that's correct.
So if anybody needs anything having to do with water, it sounds like they should at least give you a call. And being that you've been in the business for so many years, if it's not something you handle, I guarantee that you'd be able to pass them on to possibly the company or people that could help them. Hey, we want to thank you, Gil, for coming on to our show this morning. Like I said, I'm sure our listeners, and I know I have learned quite a bit, and hopefully we'll get people to reach out to you.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, Gil.
Okay, thanks.
Well, so it was interesting. Yeah, you didn't know there was so much problems with water.
Well,
and we didn't even get into all of them. I mean, there's more.
I know, but the whole resin thing. I always all I've ever seen is this tank full of salt, and I'm like, well, what the heck good does a freaking tank full of salt do to get stuff out of the water? I had no idea how that system worked. It's very intriguing. And then the weird thing is you talk about what coliform and E. coli and all the rest of that. We spend so much worrying about what's in our water supply. And then on the flip side, we worry about whether or not we've got enough bacteria in the gut, and we start buying, Activia and stuff like that. So it's kind of like you
just come over to my house and drink the water.
Exactly. So
we've got Mr. Staz on the line this morning from EnviroQuest. How are you doing this morning, John?
Good morning. Everything's good. How about you guys?
Excellent. Kingsley's, enjoying the cold weather. He thinks it's going to be a great skiing season. He's already got his snowboard out. He's been waxing it up.
They're saying it's supposed to be one of the worst winters yet in a while. So it's supposed to be one of the colder seasons.
All because of the eclipse. Or Trump.
I guess it's good if you're a skier, though, huh?
I'm sure it's probably Trump. He probably has a machine in his basement or something that does all that.
Yeah, it's all his fault.
Yeah.
So I know this morning we're going to talk about radon mitigation, how those systems work, how you guys install them. So, John, tell us a little bit about what EnviroQuest does for radon mitigation.
Yeah, with radon mitigation, we install a system. It's called subslab depressurization, and basically it involves. So we we identify the slab, usually a basement slab, although it could be a slab on grade construction. So the basement slab or the lowest slab. So then we drill about a 5-inch hole through that slab. We take out material, try to get at least like a 5-gallon bucket of material out to create a void. Then we put a pipe into that, seal it up, drill a hole to get outside through the wall usually, or go up through the house. And the fan gets located either usually outside, or it can be in the attic. It has to be outside the heated envelope of the house. So up in the attic or outside, and then it gets vented above the roof level. So if we put the fan, outside the basement, then we have to run. We'll usually try to match your exterior cladding on your house. A piece of spout. We carry several different colors, so we'll run that vent pipe or spout up above roof level. And then, the fan gets turned on. So it actually depressurizes the lowest slab in your basement, in your house.
So, John, I had a customer a few weeks ago when the house had already had a radon system in it. But I think it must have been like an older one, because when we looked for the pipe, we didn't see any pipe vented above the roof level. It looked like it was being vented out really close to the air conditioner outside unit. Was that like a really old install, you think?
Yeah, or, either that or like a homeowner install. Sometimes we get ones where, if it's your house, you can do it any way you want. You don't have to follow the radon regulations. Us as a licensed contractor, we follow all the regulations, so it's up to the current codes. But yeah, so either somebody just, put it in themselves, or, when I first started installing them and working with the companies that did it, they didn't vent it above roof level. It was, a long time ago they didn't do that. So they realized, hey, this can come back in the windows, during the summer when the windows are open. So that's why it needs to be vented above the roof level so it doesn't re-enter the house.
So then, I guess the normal drafts in the air currents just sort of carries it away above your roof.
Yeah, it dilutes, very quickly as it goes away from that vent pipe. It dilutes with the outside air very quickly. So,
because now is radon heavier than air?
Yeah, that's sort of a trick question because it can, travel through currents. If you have your HVAC system can spread it around the house, But, yeah, when we treat crawl spaces, a lot of times we found through our experience that it'll go to the lowest part of the crawl space. So if we have some sort of collection system in a crawl space, we go to the lowest part.
So here I am picturing, putting some sort of dye in this radon gas as it enters into this system, right? And it goes out of this roof vent, and it comes flowing out of this roof vent. And here I am picturing it landing on the roof and dripping off the side of the roof and back into your house anyway.
Yeah, it dilutes pretty quickly. So, yeah, I think your image is a little scary and maybe not not quite accurate. But yeah, I think they've done studies on that, and it dilutes pretty quickly. For example, the regulation as far as venting, it's got to be 10 feet away from any opening on the house or 2 feet above. So if you have a window, you can vent that thing 2 feet above the window, and that's good enough to satisfy the regulation.
John, I know they use, is that like a low voltage fan they use, one? And two, the second part of that question is, how long do they last? Because they run 24/7, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's low amperage. It runs off 110, and how long they last. Like, for example, when we install radon systems, we carry usually 4 different size fans on the truck because we never know what we're going to run into as far as the soil type. So if we're putting in a system and we hit dense compacted clay, we know that that's going to be really hard to create a suction field for the subslab depressurization. So we'll put a high suction fan on to try to, that fan's going to be working real hard. It's not going to last as long because it's drawing against that hard compacted clay. Whereas if we go into a newer house, there's a good layer of stone we'll put like a medium grade fan that has a higher volume because we know it's going to draw easily, communicate, and pull that whole slab through the coarse stone that's under the slab. So really, different size fans are needed for different house types and house age and whatnot.
I mean, on some of these really large homes, I mean, I've been in some homes lately where they have like 3,000 square feet of basement. So in a situation like that, do you actually sometimes have to put in multiple fans?
We do, but if there's good stone, they make a high volume fan that's made specifically for that type of construction. So, we come into a house like that, usually over 3,000 square feet. We'll just put in a high volume fan. Usually does the trick. But most of the houses can be done with one suction point. Sometimes you have situations where you have the footprint of the house will have like weight bearing walls to the center where there's multiple footings. So obviously that makes it a little more difficult to pull through a footing. So in those cases, a lot of times we will need another suction point.
So we've kind of gone through a lot of technical ways that I suppose that you have to go through according to code to alleviate radon in the home. But how do we know as a homeowner that we even have a radon issue? I mean, are there signs that say we've got a radon issue? How do we know we should have this tested?
Yeah, there's not really any signs. The EPA recommends that all houses be tested, and you'll find in this area it's considered a high radon area. I believe it's like something like over 60%, like roughly, of houses have elevated radon. So really, in this area especially, everybody should test their home. And then once you do get a radon system, you should test every couple of years just to make sure the system's functioning properly or that nothing's changed.
And do you do testing for it?
Yeah, we do testing. As part of when we do home inspections, we do radon testing. Sometimes people want us to do the testing in their homes. Other times you can save a little money doing the test yourself. You can buy either from us or online. You can get test canisters for about $30. You put the can out, drop it in the mail, goes to a lab, get the result within a week or so.
So that would be a good first line of defense at the very least. Just go out and get a $30 test. If it comes back as if you got an issue, hey, let's call John and make sure that we don't have any major issues here as far as radon. But with radon, I mean it's odorless, right? You don't smell it. What kind of side effects does radon cause? I mean, assuming you've got radon sitting there floating around in your home, because now, in my mind, I've got it colored. So I've got this big cloud of red smoke in my house of radon gas. What does
it's coming out the vent and then coming back in your windows and going right into your food?
Yes. It's like the old cartoons where, you smell the apple pie and your nose kind of just floats along with that little wave of stench. But so what does radon do? I mean, what are the side effects of it? What are we trying to avoid?
Well, there's a pretty cool publication. It's called The Citizen's Guide to Radon, and it has the health effects. But basically, it's not a short-term thing. It's over a long period of time. It causes damage to your lungs, like smoking or radiation. It causes damage to your lungs over a long period of time. So it's an inhalation hazard. One thing, my homeowner tip of the day, so to speak, is I hear this over and over for years and years. People say, "Oh, well, I don't have a basement. I don't need to test." That's sort of a myth. Probably a couple times a week we install systems on slab-on-grade construction that doesn't have a basement. The other one is walkout basement. I don't need to test. So I know there are a lot of people out there that are following those two myths and not testing their homes. But just to let everybody know, we put tons of systems on walkout basement houses and also on slab-on-grade.
So, John, how long do those fans last? I mean...
Yeah, I know you asked that before. Sorry I didn't address that. But, so, as I mentioned, when we get into those high suction fans, high suction environments, we have some that, and people get upset about it, but every 2 or 3 years that fan needs to be replaced. Now, Now, it's under warranty, of course, after 2 years. So it's just a labor fee to change it. But sometimes they last 2 or 3 years. I run into a lot of fans that last 20 years. So it all depends on how hard that fan's working. It's kind of like taking a vacuum cleaner and you put your hand over the nozzle and then the engine races. That's what some of these fans are doing just because of the soil type, because they're pulling so hard and they're not getting enough makeup air, and they just have to work a lot harder so they don't last as long. So
I know in a lot of the systems there's like a little tube on the side that's got some red liquid in it that sort of says whether or not the fan's working or not. So people should, every few months at least go down and make sure that it says it's working, right? How often should I check mine? I don't have one, but I'm sure Kingsley's got radon in his basement.
Oh, well, that's why I'm having issues.
So how often should we check?
It's coming back in the red dye, and it's coming back in through his windows. So.
Yeah. So how often should I, be concerned to go and check that little gauge?
We try to put it in a place that's readily visible. For example, if we run piping through the garage, we'll put it on the garage. So that way every time you park your car, you can walk by it. But you should just check it on a regular basis. Or another thing you can do, let's say if the meter's in the basement, the vacuum meter or the U-tube manometer, you can actually just walk to the pipe and put your ear against the pipe and hear if the fan's running or not. But it's good to actually check the manometer to make sure the level hasn't changed.
So that's something that most homeowners should sort of plan, that about every 3 years that they may end up replacing that fan motor?
Most of the time, that's an extreme case, 3 years. Most of the time they last, I would say the average is 8 to 12 years.
Really?
How long fans last average, yeah.
Wow, that's a long time.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So if somebody needs to get a hold of you, obviously, the best way would be phone. What's the best number for you?
Best number for us is 717-233-6144.
And, of course, you're on Facebook?
On Facebook and the web at evqharrisburg.com.
Fabulous. Folks, John's obviously been in this business for quite some time. He knows what he's doing. If you don't want to call John, to get the test done, at the very least, like you said, in this area, I'm very surprised to hear that we've got that high of a concentration of radon in the area as far as that many homes. I would get it checked, especially for your kids. You've got kids growing up. You don't want them to have long-term health issues. So spend the $30, get the test done, and see if it's something that you might want to get a pump or some sort of system in.
All right, John, have a great weekend, buddy. Enjoy your weekend off.
All right, you do the same, guys. Off to soccer practice until I get that email that it's canceled, hopefully.
Have a good one. So, Kingsley,
all right, you too. Thanks.
Next week, we're talking home staging, right?
Yeah, home staging. Next week is the 9th. So
well, set us up a little bit. Tell us what we're going to be talking about. We're talking about how to rearrange furniture, or more than that?
Well, we're going to have Sue Kaufman on. She's been a home stager. I know she was recently just invited down to be a speaker at a huge convention that they have. I think it was outside of Philadelphia. And really, it kind of takes what it takes to sell your home to another level. So if you've got a nice big home, and I walk into it, and as a buyer, the first thing I do is smell cat urine. Right? So that's kind of what we're talking about. Somebody's going to come in, very professional, tell you what works, what doesn't work, and the highest ways to get your home to sell and get the top dollar. So it'll be an exciting week next week with Sue.
All right, till next week.
I'm Kingsley with PAGoLoan.com.
I'm John with brokersrealty.com. So, real people.
Real questions.
Real answers. Keep your real estate on for next week.
See you guys next week. Have a great holiday weekend.
Today, visit PAGoLoan.com, brokersrealty.com, and Facebook.com/Real Estate Radio Guy. If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time on the Real Estate Radio Guys.
From the L.B. Smith Ford Lincoln Studios, Oldies 102.9 is WHYL Carlisle. It's the Morning Sunshine with Joe Rickey and John Christopher on Oldies 102.9 WHYL.